Hello and welcome to the skating lesson. I'm Dave Lees.
And I'm Jonathan Beyer. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Jonathan. Loving your holiday setup. Yes.
There's
Which
a tree
ornament
there
is
for you.
today?
Oh, yeah, always. It's a burden.
Yes. Oh, yes. It's that time of year we have I saw my dad like some of your holiday ornament posts before I
Your
did.
mom is an active liker of them as well, and I appreciate that. I
You know,
appreciate
they're
their engagement.
they're aggressive social media users. Yes. So
They come by it honestly. Okay.
Yes. Well, happy Grand Prix Final. Yes, it was quite the interesting event. And it's interesting that we're filming this on Monday. So
That was
as
my fault. Dave
no,
wanted to do it
it's
on
all
Sunday.
good. It's all good because um we got to see that they showed the results in the Today Show this morning, like in a 2.5 minute segment, which is huge for skating, right? Because they're
Yeah.
trying to, of course, now build these stars towards the next Olympics in a sport where there aren't superstars right now. There's no Nathan and Yuzu, right? And no Tessa and Scott, right? Like so it's different, right? And I found it very interesting that Amber took up like at least the first 90 seconds.
Yeah,
And the
that was
discussion.
the focus of the story was really Amber.
Yeah, and I think her Shiro, if you want to say, overcoming mental health, whatnot. I mean, I think if she keeps winning and they keep building this, she's going to be very successful and a name going into the next Olympic Games. So I,
And Phil Hirsch was always really eloquent at explaining this, probably more than I will in recapping it. But he always said that the United States loves that they have male singles stars in the
Mhm.
sport. But this is a culture that really goes for the female champion in the
Yeah,
sport. And it's been a while since we've really had a big one.
and I think what's different is that for so many decades, right, when the US won, the ice princess was a certain um, view, right? But then we've had gymnasts who are like strong and powerful, and they're, especially like Simone is, characterized very differently. And the gymnasts before her, like Ali Raisman and Jordan Weber, and right. Amber's also doing a triple axel. So I wouldn't say that she's even fitting into the Ice Queen box the way
Mm. Yeah.
Isabeau could be described as, right?
Yeah.
More. And I think that the fact that she's overcome mental health and does this extremely physically difficult maneuver that everybody knows what a triple axel is or has heard about it or, lived through, Tanya Harding and, I Tanya. The juxtaposition and the combination of all of those ingredients, she looks different, her makeup is different, right? All of those things, her sexuality, right? All of that, she has the ingredients of being unique. And I think she has the right personality to really engage people. And it seems like the other skaters kind of know it. Even like Kaori and the other skaters were very supportive of her winning.
Yes.
And with certain recent statements by Kaori, I think she's smart enough to know that the momentum for this season is certainly in Amber's favor. And whether the ISU ever explicitly states that or not, it did feel last year maybe Deanna had some of that momentum before Worlds, right? That the age narrative and everything that they were pushing, this is kind of the new perfect storm for this season. Like it's kind of the right person, right skater, right time. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just also, I would not count Kaori out though, because what she has taught me in past seasons is like that she does know how to budget this time. So I
Mhm.
am intrigued the way Kaori ends up looking, but yes, and always this buzz about a home worlds and all of this sort of stuff. I thought what was nice to see from Amber at this event was that it wasn't a perfect win
Yeah.
in either program. And I think just Hector Projector, like, I hope the message that you can pull this off with something that's less than perfect keeps that internal fight going at all times because she never let it go. And that was sort of the issue in the past. Like, it was really nice to see such a great moment, even though she may have been disappointed right after each of the programs.
She seemed happy after the free. Certainly, I think she knew she had done it. I mean, a double sow and, you know, a little thing here or there, but the short certainly, and she had posted that she was, not happy about, two footing and, kind of having some tight landings in the short. What I think is really important is that she has talked about working with a neurologist, and they do certain, brain work on her. I know the Russians are just focusing on the Vivans, but that she potentially takes. But if you read the comments, but it's the work that she's doing has something to do with more similar to brainwaves, which is actually interesting that the Russian fans are so obsessed with the fact that she takes, perhaps medication similar to Simone Biles, because they actually do that kind of electromagnetic work on the brains of Russian athletes after training, which is for PTSD. She's doing something similar to, study the brain waves that go in so that she can perform better, right? So a lot of it has to do with, you know, staying present, because a lot of athletes will, dissociate when they're competing under pressure, right? So it keeps you present, believing in yourself, positive and calm, or in a good state. And I think it's obviously having a tremendous impact on her. And we've seen gradual improvement over the last 2.5 years. So it's obviously making a difference. And there are other athletes that have started working with the same doctor at the USOPC. So I think the fact that she's open and talking about it is also really interesting. So that's something that the New York Times could write about, right? Like there are different angles to her that
Yeah,
people can focus on. So she's not just the American it girl, right? She's
right.
also could do a makeup thing, right? She's also, the triple axel, right? The fact that she has mental health, and there's the sexuality angle. So there's all these different, aspects of that I think is interesting. Um, I was going to wonder, so having seen her programs, do you think for next season she should add a second triple axel or at least try it early on?
Oh gosh, I didn't even think about that. I mean, it was. I feel like now there is great consistency to the one in the short program, even though I know it wasn't, a flawless attempt here. I think putting it in the short was the most important,
Mhm.
actually, because of the advantage it gives going into the long. Um, I don't see why not.
It's one of her better jumps, if you
It
think about
really
it,
is. It
right?
really is.
And the fact that she's already training it in the short, to do it in the short, mentally, she's already at such a high level, like with her confidence and with the jump, that I don't think doing two would be that much more taxing.
One,
Because,
it's interesting because she talked a lot about Elizaveta Tuktamisheva sort of being the model she was looking at. And of course, we saw Elizaveta start with the one in the free, and then it was the free and the short. And now, then it was, two in the free and one in the short. So maybe that is the plan.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would, because if you look at sometimes like the jumps that she has errors on, it's like a triple sow, right? Like
Right.
doubling it. These are just like mistakes. It's not like she can't do a difficult jump, right? So I think that it could also give her more of a buffer, right? And if she's behind after the short, it could be more of a way to climb in the free. So I think it's something worth exploring if they can do.
Yeah.
Um,
The only thing is they seem to have come up with a good rhythm of like big moments, small moments, rest moments, refocus moments, rev up moments. So I'm curious where another big element like that fits in the lineup. Is she someone that wants to knock them both out right away?
I mean, ideally, not knowing, right? For her, I would want to knock out the two axles and that triple triple, right? Like
Yeah,
right in that chunk, but maybe she needs to have something later. Who knows?
yeah.
But uh I I also just think that they need to find special music, right? So that people don't get bored.
It's
Uh
getting better.
yeah.
It's a step in the right direction. But where I will sit back is if they found something that manages her energy level.
Yes.
If that's what this is, then I'm gonna have to just say okay, and
You got to change the color of the dress. She can't be doing like the purple mauve family for next year.
it's a little too forgettable, I think, or
Forgettable, and she
fake away.
wears it almost every year, if you think about it. And I think for the short, I would continue to push the edge and the personality more.
Yeah.
right? So just to stand out. I mean, she does, a fun contemporary number in the exhibition. People have mentioned she could do K-pop, she could do many different things. I think that, but in that direction, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. What did you think of Kaori here? What do you make of the Chicago? I don't know that we've discussed it together.
We didn't. It's almost funny
What did
because
that dress? I mean,
it's just so unexpected.
it
There's something so shocking about it to me.
the dress,
No, about just the idea to go with this as the vehicle.
the
And
dress is. I don't.
well, it
What?
doesn't relate to the Chicago we know of the Jenny Kirk era, does it? And neither is it that sort of like approach energetically. They're going for something grittier, earthier.
What is the shape supposed to be on the dress?
It kind of is just like vaguely Art Deco. That's what it strikes me as, but
You know
that's not.
what people describe it as, right?
No, well, I could have. Maybe as I'm recalling it, I was like, is it a cello? No, it's something else.
Like grandpa's hanging
Got
low.
it. Yep.
Like
Right, yeah.
and it
Yeah,
once
understood.
you see it, you can't
And all that jazz.
and
Yeah.
all that jazz. Yes. But
Well,
Mao had a problem with that dress once before, and they actually like changed it a little
right.
bit. The fall of the 2016-2017 season.
I definitely remember that one.
Yeah.
That was sorry.
This one to me is more uncomfortable. Once it was pointed out, I can't unsee it.
Okay, because the other instance was very clear to me right away. I'm gonna have to go look at it. But this sort of like hand jivey, bubbly sort of thing isn't really her thing. They're not really trying to do it too much, but yet it's very clearly lacking from it. And it's almost a different kind of frenetic fast. She's so fast, but she's big and strong fast. And
Yeah.
this is like quick, fidgety fast. It's a surprise. I mean, it was an interesting exercise, I think, into giving her this type of program. Again,
Yeah.
assuming that every season leading up to the Olympics is just a trial run of something.
Look, she's got us talking way more than she did last year, where the programs were just bland, right? So it's a step in the right direction. However, I wonder about Marie France sometimes because Marie France last year gave her the feeling good. This year she gave her Chicago. So obviously there was a lot of criticism with last year that it was one of Marie France's schlockier efforts. Kind of like, remember when Olivia Smart did like It's a Man's World and Natural Woman like together? Like that's when Marie France is really sucking her own BS,
Drinking her own Kool-Aid. Okay.
drinking her own Kool-Aid, however you want to put it, right? So uh, this with the Chicago, and she made a comment on how her choreographer really wanted her to stick with this program, earlier in the season. It's interesting because she doesn't have great posture, and they've tried to add performance to her with her upper body. Each choreographer has, but there's like a lot of high kicks and stuff, and because her posture goes back to like the more athletic position, like more like a hockey player, it's just like she's all over the place in a way where she's not like buzzed Oksana Bayul doing Sarah Kawahara, but it's a little bit like we're on a seesaw. It's just,
Yeah.
or it's,
Well, like you're saying, I could see if you thought, okay, we want to get the upper body engaged. Something like a Chicago does ask that of you, but it's not really being met at the moment. But I
yeah,
think it's all for naught until the jumps become a little bit more solid. But she has always impressed me because at several points early in the season, I would be like, what is happening this year? And then sure enough, by World, she has it all sorted out. And so compared to seasons past at this time, she does seem pretty okay.
yeah, no, she seems good, and she has to be obviously a little bit better in a couple weeks at Japanese nationals. I find it interesting because it has to be a weird situation where she won worlds, she did the bonus year, then she keeps going, then now you're closer to this Olympics, but she's in that strange place where you don't want to really go too hard mentally this year because she knows
Right.
that next year she needs to really be under a lot of stress, right? So I wonder with her what the strategy really is, because though they've tried to make her a better performer, and I'm sure that there has been growth if we were to watch, I don't think the choreographer
Oh,
has.
I think there's been a great deal. Yeah.
But I don't think her current programs like match or bring out her best, right? And I think for next year, they have to decide which choreographer to go with, which music to go with. I wouldn't really be trusting Marie France after the last two
Well,
efforts
there's
that
been a couple of misses. Yeah.
uh, and
And I'm
even
surprised, I really liked when she collaborated with Rohini in the past. This one is also interesting. It's not necessarily as different as I was sort of hoping it might be.
yeah.
In the way when Lori gave this Spanish program to Yuma,
Hmm.
it's very much a specific, individualized, stylized version of one. And
Yes.
this just sort of presents as more like the expected one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think she has limitations in terms of her movement. While she's an incredible athlete, the artistic side is not her strength, which is why she went to Benoit before. I mean, remember when she was doing, the gestures with.
And yet had one of the most iconic pieces of choreography ever when she like sort of put the boot blade in the judge's face. Like there was nothing necessarily extended or lovely about it, but it was so memorable. And it
It
was
was
something
so
to look
memorable.
forward to.
And it was so funny because I wouldn't say that that was great art. Like that was a total
Oh,
gimmick, if you will,
yeah.
right? But it worked, right?
Yeah.
The problem is that she's a skater that when she was like the bronze medalist, she was so fun to root for, right? Now you're looking at three-time world champion going, for four, and you're like, are you that level? Like, are
Yeah.
you?
Is that the one that is able to get that series of titles when no one else has in the longest of times?
I mean, she is a great beneficiary to the Russians being banned, right? But at the same time, it's hard because we were so conditioned, right, to how they performed. But I think if you look at this field as a whole and you look at the exhaustion and you look at what you know about performance enhancing drugs, right, and what you know is like, oh, perhaps this is what a final looks like clean.
You've been at it all fall. Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
they did the challengers now, right? But this was a level of competition not necessarily well skated in all of the events in both portions of the competition. And in the past, people, are nailing it every week, but then we keep seeing more trimetazidine across sports, right? So
Right.
you start to be like, oh, recovery, right? And it's
100%.
just kind of an interesting thought, right? Because on one hand, it would be like, I felt like sometimes some of these disciplines needed a little bit more competitiveness, but you also want them to be clean, right? So it's a difficult.
Did you find this a hard watch with
Not
the lack of cleanliness? There, it was the kind of lack of
short.
cleanliness I was with.
The women's short was tough, right?
Okay.
It was just a very poorly skated event, which
Yeah.
is you never want to see, right? Um, but I thought the free was, much better.
Well, and hearing that the practices were going fine for most people, with the exception of Kaori, it did seem like the energy must have gotten zapped somehow in the arena.
Yeah.
Right? Because it was pretty consistent. And it's such an unusual thing where your whole event is in one warm up group.
Yeah. And the other thing is that for at least the women's event, it wasn't a ton of mainstays, right? There were a lot of people who were trying to prove something. So they were also experiencing a different kind of nerves. Amber mentioned imposter syndrome. Wakaba's trying to make a comeback, right? Some of the other skaters are younger, and have certainly had errors in the past in the short program. So yeah, I think some of those errors are to be expected. I think Kaori's not as much, right, in the short program, but that was a rough event. And there was a lot of debate about whether Amber should have won the short or Mone Chiba should have won. I'm curious if you had a particular point of view.
I didn't have a strong opinion. I was, I couldn't help but wonder, excuse me, how Mone Chiba was looking in the arena.
Mm.
Because there was something, especially about the free skate, that was very elegant and delicate and beautiful and soft about the presentation. But a lot of those words make me also think it might have been small.
Mm. interesting because she reminds me of Saptiko, right? In many ways about her skating, which is a compliment, right? However, while I love that she does the Donna Summer for the short program, I love, the energy and that it's different. The music is too big for her, in
It's
my
too big. Yeah.
right. And kind of like Brady's short program where the music gets too big. And even Alyssa, right? They don't, we can talk about that, right? But the edit in the short, to me, the music gets bigger than her, right? I think that, I think picking music is such a unique thing, right? And like everybody has their own taste and their own theory. My opinion, that music is too big for her. The same way in Grossel's program, when it's the part of Billie Eilish when the dance teacher is performing,
Right.
that's too big and disconnected from his voice, right? Like you want to,
Yeah.
to me, I want to hear the music as like an extension of the voice of the athlete, right? To me, it's be like performative, and it's almost like on top of it. I noticed in some of Caitlin Weaver's music choices for like a Mao Shimada, this happens, right? I just I love the program. I think it's fun. It's a bit of a show program for me in that, and not a great one, in that the music is just too big for her, where the free program feels like it's coming from within her. And that's just my opinion
Yeah.
with that. Yeah.
But it was interesting. Especially in the free skate, I might not have had, in my opinion, Mone Chiba as high.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. There were a couple. I mean, it looks like the Slovakian judge gave Mone Chiba the first place ordinal. Japan gave her the third.
Hmm.
And Canada gave her the fourth. It was just so lovely. It just seemed
I mean, Japan was protecting their queen that they put Kaori first.
and
Right?
understood and understood.
Yeah.
Um, but it just seemed too small. And
Okay.
the too small, it was almost like giving junior vibes. Not in that it was unrefined. It just seemed not to take up enough space
Okay.
choreographically to me.
I think when I'm looking at, so that certainly would be reflected in components. I think when I look at her skating, right? One of the things that I think that she has a real advantage over someone like Amber and Kaori, right? Are she's so well trained, right? And so polished that many of her elements, the choreographic sequence, the spins, the step sequence, I'm giving maximum points to her, right? And on some of the jumping passes, like her double axel, she's able to really get some positive GOE. Some of the jumping passes, are tougher and tighter for her, right? But she's getting a lot of points and in GOE, and she gets a lot, for skating skills and for composition, certainly, uh, because she's such a masterful skater, right? Like her run of edge, while she may not have the speed, if you look at just how good she is through her ankles and her feet and her glide, it's so superior to some of the more sophisticated than other skaters. So
Mm.
while it's not as big, and I think that that's something that Satoko had and Rika Kihira certainly as well, I think there are other areas where I would reward her over Kaori and over Amber. And
Mm.
I think like when we get into the dance, she has a real advantage to me on those other elements. Like if you look at her protocol, right? Like step sequence 4, layback spin 4, change combination spin 4, flying change combination spin 4. You look at Amber's step sequence 3, change combination
And our
spin
twos.
2.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the GOE is not great, right? And I think, Kaori, Wakaba, these are real areas where they're losing points on some of the, like I'm nervous for Wakaba going into nationals, right? She has to be consistent, right? Because there are other people that can, outscore her on some of these other elements. And they add up, in a tight competition. Kaori, change combination spin 4, but she got the V.
Right.
And yeah, just overall, that kind of sloppiness, leaving points on the table. So what I will say is that Mone Chiba does.
But it was interesting. The last time we were chatting, we were talking about the potential Japanese women's team.
Mhm.
I forgot about Mone Chiba. You had to say like, "Oh, don't forget Mone Chiba. She's really in there." And sure enough, top top finishing Japanese woman out of these five. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do you expect this to kind of be the ranking at nationals in a couple of weeks? I mean,
I would certainly be okay with it. I mean, of course, I would imagine they're going to make sure Kaori is on it.
mhm,
But to me, Wakaba was the vulnerable one that I'm rooting for. But
yeah,
she was very, but they were all kind of close here also. I mean, she was ahead. That was a fluke situation, I think, that happened to her in the short program.
mhm.
I really like the short program. And I don't know, everything about her right now indicates to me it's only going to keep getting better.
I agree. And for me, I felt like the moment was maybe too big for Rino Matsuki, based on the continued errors in the short program and then the free. I would imagine, the Federation may start to look at her as more of a potential liability going into Worlds because you don't want someone to blow the short program, in an Olympic.
Well, and it's a repeat short program, and I don't care for it because
Mhm,
I think the free skate is so amazing. It's
mhm.
so beautifully crafted. So this short program that seems to not be going well, that's a repeat. I wonder what the reasoning is there.
Yeah. What do you make of Hana Yoshida? To me, it's too many shoulders and knees and elbows, and
And glittery neon colors.
I never trust her triple axel. She gets
Yeah.
the edge call on her Lutz. She got she got an exclamation point on her Lutz and her flip, which is tough to do.
Yeah. Why not just reverse those edges?
I don't-
All in the other one. Um, yeah, I still view her and Reno as in sort of this in development category in
Mhm.
some ways in their journey. So I would, because is there anyone that wasn't here that you think may throw a wrench in it?
These are the
These
girls
are
that
the
are.
ones,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be so fine with a Mone Kaori Wakaba Japanese world team. Are
I
there
think
some in the past that have sent people to four continents to suss it out?
has Japan done that? Japan doesn't usually do that. They've made some hard choices before,
Okay.
right? With some of the men in terms of what they've done with different rosters, but they don't usually battle it out.
Okay.
They don't give us that Russian drama where Medvedeva and Demisheva are battling it out for the last spot.
But
That's
and again, it's not a season where they can even give it to you as a consolation.
yeah,
If I would have sent, they just choose to send the world team.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious what Mao Shimada won again the Junior Grand Prix final, but she did miss the triple axel and the quad toe, which she's had more and more difficulty on these elements as she's grown, and she does have that same technique of her coach, right? That has certainly liked her skaters very small in the past. I'm wondering, are you worried about her at this point in terms of, you know,
Well, I'm curious because they were playing this angle on the commentary, like it's so great she goes for it, even though she doesn't have to. But
that,
the triple axel was close-ish, but the quad looked maybe far from feasible.
the quad was never her most stable element. I think in general, and I get that Mark clearly wants to be liked, right? Like I know that even when I'm critical, like he's, sent messages, and I think that they've gone too far in their commentary where they're talking all the time and they're saying nothing, right? So at one point during the dance event, he was saying, like, well, one team looked like they were the best last night and another team looked the best this morning. And then I messaged him, and then later he indicated who he was talking about. And I think, like, if you're there to add something, right? They seem to be almost just cheerleaders where you want someone to be also providing information.
Well, I think Mark can. It was also,
And
I
but
felt like Ted was a strange presence with that. And even in some ways, like Mark would say something about a pointed toe,
mhm,
and then Ted would be like, I know that seems ridiculous, but it actually, you guys, it does kind of count, I guess. Or so, like I couldn't figure out what angle they were trying to play.
someone told me once, they're like, Ted likes who's ever doing well. And it's funny because there's a documentary called the is it called Ice Girls? It's an old Canadian documentary. And Ted is involved in the coaching team of one of the skaters who's inconsistent and coming back. and he's not so hunky-dory in there the way he is when he's commentating, although he keeps it, like he kind of has that like uneasy vibe of an HR rep. If you ever like a human resource, like, like where you just like feel like you can't quite trust them, right? Like they're saying something and it sounds great.
Okay. Well, I wonder if they're given angles to sort of promote, because what I do appreciate is that Mark is acknowledging the fans. I think that part
I'm
is
concerned
important.
about the fans because they do tweet at him and he
Okay.
definitely pays attention. And I'm
And
sure.
that's who's watching. I'm sorry, that's who's streaming this live on Peacock or on the ISU channel. So this like everybody's trying their best thing from Ted, or like I know ice dance doesn't seem like a real sport, but it really is hard, you guys. I was like, what? Why is that necessary?
I look, Mark is someone who has spent his entire life obsessing over pointing his own toe to outdo the extension of everyone. I do want to hear those kinds of comments from him.
They are crucial. Yes.
What I think he does well in supporting the skaters, but it's come time that he needs to kind of differentiate, right? He acts like he's never watched high level skating before, which is just not how he typically is, right? And we've even judged events with him before where he was more critical, right? And I think that he's not educating the viewers enough. And I know that everybody's so worried, especially in today's climate, you can't say anything without, offending someone, but that kind of is your job as a commentator. It's funny, but that Sydney figure skating channel is really great. And they upload a lot of the old events with Belinda Noonan's commentary. And she plays it like political too, except she's very rules based, right? So when she was going, she can be very direct about certain things, and it doesn't sound offensive because she's just pointing it out, right? So she was
Right.
talking about Ilya Kulik and where she thinks he deserved points, and basically was saying that he didn't have the maturity or the artistry. The man, the straight man, commentating with her, the play-by-play, was asking her, do you think the men need a quad? And she goes, well, Elvis certainly does, because his body doesn't have the same range of motion as the other ones. He can't hit the beautiful positions. And true.
And that's correct. Elvis would tell you that.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
and like when Todd was skating, she was like, ooh, right? Like, oh, he overdid that. That's why he did the double toe. So I just think that like that kind of commentary is more added value, and people will actually appreciate you if they can understand. Yes, they will say you're too critical, right? Of course, but they'll also learn from you and appreciate that.
Because it can live alongside. Like I think he's done is it Reno that does that like big inside edge that he gushes over? And
Yes.
that's the clip I've seen going viral, is him gushing over that edge. And we do want that to be drawn to people's attention. If they don't see that, inherently understand that that's beautiful and difficult, let's bring attention to it. But I also find, and this happens a lot when Ted is around in the commentary, it becomes, oh, but that will come.
Yes.
It's like, I know, but
They
will
were
it?
completely
Like,
lying. Like they were lying during Mao Shimada's, right? But I think that they feel confused. I mean, Ted was so on the Atari train, right? But at this point, that Mao Shimada's has a very tough uphill battle maintaining the levels she's been at, as much competition stress as she's been under at all of these very big junior competitions. And now the jumps are starting to go as she grows. And I think they probably don't really know how to handle that, right? Can they be honest about it, or are they going to have to, feel like they have to sell the Junior Grand Prix? And I
right.
think this, Mao Shimada, unfortunately, is likely to be the victim of an age rule increasing. And in every sport, when this happens, there is typically a victim of that. Like in gymnastics, Vanessa Atler's career was very changed by the trajectory of that age rule being increased. And there often is an athlete that is impacted by it, by those kinds of
And
decisions
yet, almost, isn't it kind of proving the point of the age rule?
to an extent,
Which is unfortunate that real human being athletes are caught up in the mix of it. But the idea being, if you have to be under a certain age or size in order to do this, this is not the sustainable technique we're looking to promote.
Yeah, it's weird because on one hand, it's two different things, right? Because people say, oh, we want the age so we can see more beautiful skating. That you just need age to have more beautiful skating. Mao Shimada's had beautiful skating for
Right.
years, right?
Yeah.
From the get-go, right? She really had these building blocks. She's had great programs. She's had great artistry for a long time. Actually, she's sort of been maintaining for several years now. Yes, it is true about the technique, right? And I think what we're seeing is that there's at least should, right, be kind of a change in technique, right? Especially in the US. The problem is that so many of the coaches were not these great scholars, right? And they copied the Russian technique, right? And I another victim I think would be Lindsay Thorngren, right? Like
I
she
know who's now is skating more beautifully than ever, but yeah.
those jumps, which had cues, 4 years ago, are now really under, right? And her coach did copy the Russian formula with her. And so her jump coach, Anton, when he was teaching her, like in particular, right? Like they used that style. It did not work for an adult body. She could have gotten away with it maybe in 2022, but she was not as focused on her choreography at that time. So I think that was mismanagement. You look at Isabeau, who knows what's going on, what will happen, with her moving forward. But I think that, those kinds of things. And
But that's why Amber's quote about having to look to Elizaveta was important. She was
yes,
like, when I looked at triple axels in the women's event, there was no one with my body, with the exception of Elizaveta in recent history that had been doing it.
hmm
Yeah.
yeah. And it's only made her more popular and more beloved. I mean, people love a jump that's big,
Like that. Yeah.
people know greatness when they see it.
Right.
Um, so I'm curious, what did you make of Alysa Liu? I don't think that we've discussed her too much. Uh,
Yeah, it was interesting. The Zagreb videos were a little hard to find.
yes.
Um, and the first one I found of the short program, I loved. Some of the camera work in Grenoble was throwing me for a loop. First of all, they must have those digitized ads on the barrier. So whenever there was a white background on one, it was doing that weird like moraying thing with the light when the skater would go past it. It was very distracting to me. And of course, Zagreb, it seems so unusual because it's as if no one can even watch. They're all, huddled behind an umbrella somewhere. But in Grenoble, they were doing all these close-ups of the skaters, and you can tell the cameramen just aren't familiar with the programs or the moves because they're zooming in on a face, and I was like, we need to see the feet, the feet. We need to see the feet right now. And so this was from someone's just phone in the stands, and the way they followed Alysa around, I was like, I would like to hire you to do this for the ISU because this is a great angle.
Yeah.
It's a great angle to tell speed, ice coverage, and I'm still enjoying the program. It's not too far away. Too many
Mhm.
close-ups. That's what I realized from watching the Zagreb. She does seem a smidge slow, understandably.
She was
Um,
never the fastest skater.
yeah, and some of the
She
combos
wasn't.
look a
She was
little swirly, but the Donna Summer, I don't know. It kind of works for me in a way.
the short is so great, right? The short and the music, you could juxtapose it and hear what you want in it. You could make it about skating and her comeback, so people will love that.
Right.
If she skates that clean, it'll kill at nationals, right? She'll be
Mhm.
first or second after the short, most likely, I would think. Even if Isabeau is there, I think she's got a shot at being first or second after the short,
I
certainly
agree.
top three. Um, and then she just has to do enough in the long. But she's been consistent enough that when they're looking at who they want to send to Worlds, I think they're going to send her. And and I think if you look, like I think it's pretty clear. Amber likely won't go to four continents, right? They'll want her to. She's done so many competitions. She wins nationals. Probably take a break, then have her get ready for Worlds, right? They'll probably send Alyssa uh, to four continents and Worlds, I would think. Probably Sarah Everhart. They'll send between Junior Worlds and four continents, right? Um, and I would think Brady for comments, right? And depending if Isabeau goes to nationals or not, they might just send Isabeau directly to Worlds, and then I would name either Brady or Sarah as.
Because what's happening with Isabel that she might not go to national?
She's allegedly injured, so who
Okay.
knows? She's on the ice, off the ice, if she's going to be ready for nationals, right?
Ah,
That's not a
okay.
ton of time, for right now
Oh,
off, right? Especially to be in the top three when she has been, struggling with, some of her results this season. I could see them saying you're a world medalist and we're going to send you directly.
right.
Which is of
Okay.
course what they said they couldn't do for Johnny in 2009. Remember when he was sick and he went, yes, inconsistent, right? But uh, the whole fiasco with the show and he got sick,
Right.
whole deal, right? I think if Isabel plays her cards right, they'll send her directly. They'll name
Okay.
her. Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, I think again, Isabeau will only or Isabeau, Alyssa will only continue to get stronger.
yeah,
That's the
yeah.
attitude I'm getting.
Throughout.
The
So
train has left the station, and she is on it.
I think her biggest strength is her mind, right? Like she believes she's gonna do it.
Oh
If you
yeah, and she's
just
used
watch
to it.
her, you can tell. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like okay, like objectively, she does not have the most speed or the best jumps, but she wills herself to.
and that's who gets it.
Yeah. And the music is fun. I don't know that the new edit of the free is an improvement over the previous one. To me, the music is so fast in the second half for someone
Yeah,
who's off the ice for so long, whose stamina is still increasing. Every time you see her, her stamina is a bit better, but the music is a little bit
yeah,
fast, tempo wise, and big. So, and
and big party music to
yeah,
just inevitably do some of these small turns that are required in those clusters and things.
to me, that's like a little bit of a strange choice. I think that could be fine tuned as they go forward to kind of find that right balance or
But
the
it
right.
is a big get the crowd up moment if that goes to Boston, or if they're looking, pardon me, to have the moment in Wichita or wherever Nationals is.
I think people will love her, right? They'll do a big story on her comeback, the whole deal, and
And I
she's
think a lot of people won't have realized she stepped away.
also correct.
Yes. Yeah.
But doesn't matter, right? Because she's,
But an
you know,
important move for her to go to win
mhm,
decisively over Nina and Brady.
yeah.
It was an important event for her to have done that well at.
And Brady's been pretty steady throughout the year, but she's not delivered what she's capable of just yet. But she, has, she got, some calls on the Lutz and things like that. So I think for Brady, she can do a bit better, but I don't think that she doesn't have the story of Alyssa, and Alyssa just has the music, the smile, right? Like in the
That's
free.
the thing. You want to root for Alyssa.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
unfortunate because Brady has a story too. I mean, she's been injured and whatnot, but she's not as open. She doesn't give as many interviews. She's more serious, right? She's just
Well,
more serious.
and I know it's just outside perception, but in the same way, I can look at Wakaba and be
Mhm.
like, I feel like things only get stronger as this season goes. Or I look at Alyssa and I was like, I have this feeling that every time you step on the ice under competition light, you will be stronger than the time before. I don't have that same confidence with Brady.
I think Brady will be consistent through the rest of the season. I
Yeah.
don't know that it's hard, but skating is there's so much projection, right? That goes on this and the choices and the subjectivity to certain, but Alyssa has that. There's always been that buzz about her. I mean, the fact that everybody was always talking about her, the father was always changing coaches, she was always trying the elements, whether
Right.
people said that they were real or not, the girl goes out and delivers every single time to the point where it's also impressive, right? So she just, there's
And
like,
there's something matter of fact about it.
remember John Nick said the worst thing you could do is have a boring ice princess, right? Like a girl just needs to have enough buzz about them. And
Yeah.
Alyssa always does. If you
Yeah.
notice, right? Amber, there's enough buzz. Isabeau, there's enough buzz.
Yeah.
Brady,
Well,
not a
and
lot of books.
Amber and Alyssa in particular, because they seem like real people in many ways.
Mhm.
Um, but again, Isabeau and Brady haven't really opened up that way either.
Well, I
But
think
that
Brady
goes
is
back to the
still.
commentary also. Like, I did appreciate that Mark was trying to introduce the skater to us as the person.
Mhm.
There was much more of that than I've ever heard from any other commentary, on the ISU network for sure. Just the idea, again, we are rooting for people.
Yeah. And I felt in pairs the fact that Deanna and Max weren't there. Deanna is a more open skater, and I felt like that was missing, right? Like there was a personality who was missing from the sport, and it was more significant, right? Megan was also a personality when she skated, lover, hater. She was a personality there.
Yeah,
In the same way, Tutamisha was a personality. Uh,
100%. These are, and the common denominator being they had something to say.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Wakaba, yeah, I think it's going to get better. It's
I
just,
think so too. And something about just the way she's carrying herself just tells me there's a plan here. Like, I trust what's about to happen.
I'm not sure she's going to have the triple axel for Worlds. And she
I
was
think we would
trying
need to have seen it by now, don't you think?
I'm a little worried if she's going to have it back for next year because when we saw it at the last Olympics, she was already doing it in practice the year prior and even trying it in events.
Right.
So, I mean, who knows where she is with it? I know she did a couple in public, but it just wasn't around in the same.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. Uh, what did you make of the pairs here? I thought that this was.
It missed Deanna and Max, that's for sure. Were they forthcoming with explaining what happened to Max, or did they just say there was an illness?
You know what? They said that he was sick and that they had missed like a week of training or
Right.
so. And then when they got back on the ice, they like were not ready. So, but of course, everyone was wondering, they really sick? How sick? If the Olympics were here, where they got, I mean,
When did she just get her citizenship?
she got it today. Apparently, she got her passport. So, yeah,
No, I didn't hear actually, but yeah, okay.
think that there's a lot going on there, right? So I think we'll see them for the second half of the season.
I do have lots of feelings. Like, the Japanese pair, this is the two best programs they have ever had. That
Really?
they have ever had, in my opinion.
Okay. The music included?
I'll take it.
All
Which one
right.
are you less a fan of?
The audios. I can't.
Hmm.
I can't.
Okay. Okay. Sure, there's like a goodbye pun in here somewhere. But
Not even. It's just. And this team always has music that has repetitive words throughout it, but audios, audios, audios.
I
Again,
know I kind of dug it. And we've been so soft, rocky, cheesy lyric arm movements for so long with them. To see these are the kind of movements they deserve.
the movements are good, right?
Yeah.
It's the actual song that I'm like, you need to take it to Hugo and have him
Zhuzh.
uh,
Okay.
just
Okay.
blaring, right? It just blares. They are great, right? If they can be full strength and confident, I think they are the best overall team. However, her continued like issues on the triple toe concern me because I'm also looking. It's gotten to the point where I don't expect her to land it, right? Like sway and the triple sow, you're
Yeah. Yeah.
anticipating potential error, right? Deanna and her triple sow, right? So you're at Max and right, you're wondering if there's going to be an error. The thing is, when athletes become older and it takes them longer, especially when they have more complex transitions to become consistent, I am concerned when you have a team like the Germans who do not have the same choreography, they don't have the same musicality, they don't have the same
Presence. Yeah.
presence, they don't have the transitions, but they are consistent and they are confident. And people start believing it, and the scores start rising, and their lines do match.
Easy to reward. It's
Yeah.
easy to understand. It may not be inspired, but it's solid and it checks boxes. It's not heinous. It's lovely enough.
Unless the Japanese have the biggest, performance of all time in front of the Boston crowd, and Bruno Marcotte should then move to Boston and never leave. Um, I kind of think it's the Germans to win or lose, right?
Based solely on the consistency.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they've been consistent now enough times that I expect them. I now think of them as the leader going in.
Yes. Now, having said that, they did win the final last year.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow we didn't feel that same way then. That sort of seemed like, oh, here's a new team. They kind of put it together. They're figuring this out.
Deanna and Max had that moment at Skate Canada in the free where we had seen the excellence from them and what that program could be. And I feel like we haven't seen that in their programs yet. We haven't quite seen the excellence of the Japanese yet.
Right.
We know what Conti and Machi can do. I don't think it's as strong as what the Germans can do. The Germans are very slow. So, I think that Deanna and Max certainly have a shot, and the Japanese have a shot, but both teams have to get more consistent, right? And they kind of have to turn it around by four continents to really.
That's because I think if all three teams skate clean, the Germans are third, 100%.
Yes.
That's a big ask for all three of those teams to skate clean. Doesn't mean that I would love for that to be the case, because then it's the fun discussion about who should be on top. But the Japanese and Deanna and Max, understandably so, like, some errors will come. What surprises me sometimes with these pairs programs are when we would see a pair where the side by sides were really tough, and the throws were totally fine.
Yeah.
I do not know what it's like to land a triple Salchow, let alone a throw triple Lutz, but I would think like you're either in the mode of landing or you're not. So it makes sense to me when people nail both or struggle with both. It was fascinating here to see some teams like completely botch the side by sides and nail the jumps, or vice versa.
Yeah. And I would also like to give a shout out to Ellie Can, because in the preview show, I said what I was most, I didn't want to say if I thought Amber could win or not, because I was like, I don't know that I want to put that on her, right? Obviously, she had the potential to win. I felt like Ellie was either going to take that step up or bomb, right? Like it wasn't going to be in the middle. She really delivered here. I mean, Danny freaking fell, right?
Yeah.
And she really fought for everything, even if they weren't perfect landings, especially on
that combo
with the axles. So I was really impressed with her performance here and how her confidence has grown. And I thought that was quite impressive.
Well, her parents are certainly rooting for her, or whoever they kept showing in the crowd. That was pretty cute. That
like, so does the parents.
Yeah.
I like when we get to see the parent. It just humanizes them. It makes them real people.
Yes.
Yeah, I think those things are. I think we saw Danny, Evan Bates's parents in the.
Oh, okay.
As well. So I don't know. I like when we see the parents.
I'm impressed Evan Bates's parents still go to these things.
I am as well too, but they're winning now, so
yeah, and maybe it's their excuse to travel, and that's great. Yeah, okay.
I mean, when you've been in it so long and they're finally winning, and they probably couldn't go during COVID, so there's that.
The time.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, you don't know how long you're going to see your kid win at the Grand Prix Final in France, so
yeah,
certainly exciting. Yeah, yeah.
But Danny, I was very surprised by her.
Yeah, Ellie
or
was
maybe not surprised, impressed. I was very impressed.
All right, I want to talk about the men before we go into because Ari Zakarian. Okay, I like Ari. I think he tries.
He was very friendly on the show. He was fun to talk to.
I think.
Get away, pick a new angle.
I think he's creating a problem for Ilia. And, he's not a traditional IMG agent. He's tried to build Ilia's career. He's put him in a lot of shows. He wants to put him into a global superstar. And what I will say is that Ari works his butt off. He's calling every member of the press before a big event. Okay. Sure enough, I got a text message from him last week, and I was busy. I was like, I can't, like I don't want to talk about Ilia, like I don't want to be boxed in, right?
Yeah.
Um, I'm sorry, but I think his comments here, and I really like him, and I don't think that he's necessarily like a truly homophobic person, but I think that the comments, and they always juxtapose Ilia with just Jason Brown, especially in the Russian press.
Mhm.
I have a real issue with that. Okay. They always play the victim. And the thing is that Ari really, his mode, he's always upset. They're getting into this weird narrative that Ilya's always the victim. He's winning competitions, he's getting great marks, but what Ari really wants is he wants to sell Ilia with world record after world record after world record. And the thing is that there have been a lot of other phenomenal skaters right before here. Ilia, okay, Amber was the lead on the Today Show over Ilia. But why? Because she's vulnerable, like with her story.
She opens and we know who she is, and we're interested in rooting for her, and they're talking about her, the person, not a world record. I don't buy this.
Don't have Ilia.
Because it's not a race and there's no perfect score. I think you've gotten rid of the audience interest in the score.
What does Ilia watch on TV? We don't even know because they
Right.
don't have him talk to the press, right? And some of that is because he made those comments in the past, but people don't know who he is. He doesn't have this come from behind story, he's not some underdog. And frankly, it's cocky. I mean, he calls himself the quad god, right? So, they've marketed him as, the Michael Jordan, although yes, I mean, is he a generational talent? Yes. However, he's coming after two generational talents in Yuzu and Nathan, right? So where those two athletes were so impressive, right? It's like coming after, coming after Orser and Boitano. Kurt Browning was something different, right? He wasn't exactly the same. He has a different body structure and different way of moving, and his persona grew. I don't think that Ilia's performance, although I think he's made efforts in his performance, especially in the short program. I don't understand the free at all. I don't think it's well done. I think
And the costumes are making it worse.
it's weird is that every time they try to change his costumes, they go from bad to worse. And I'm sorry.
In my opinion, go simple. If you want to be a global superstar, you can put up a Simone Biles in like a blue leotard. You don't put up someone with these weird ripped, mummified, dyed fabrics everywhere, especially if you're trying to be this like tough guy athlete.
It's derivative. It's really like tacky Russian, like
Just wear all black, dude. I know everyone was so critical of Nathan, but like,
look great.
no, it looks clean. It looks good. You're an athlete. Do your thing. Scott Hamilton in the speed skating suit.
The open back, it's both of his costumes were distracting. They detract from his line. And I'm sorry, someone that can do the quad axel like he can, he's actually not a terrible skater. But his foot is constantly flexed when he's skating on the ice. If he actually like focused on pointing his toe, people would start to shut up, right? But he's made himself, and Ari has really, because Ari is doing the talking for him, but then Ari's also playing into his own head, right? I was hearing talk last year, well, Ilia might retire after the Olympics because, everyone's against him. And it's like, who's against him? He's winning every title, right?
Every single one. And
Right.
in this interview I was reading, where it was talking about like the ISU is trying to discourage quad axles by calling his, other jumps under rotated. And it was like there were tough calls here. These were very aggressive callers here and consistent.
But I'm sorry, Ilia's short was great. His free was tight the
Yeah.
whole way. And
Yeah.
well, for what he usually does. at least on TV, not seeing it in person, it did not look as
I think
spectacular.
the victimology sells. Is that the goal?
I don't know, but he's looked slower and more tentative in the free program all year. It's clear that they wanted to set a record of landing all 6 quads in one program, but his quad loop is often tight. So, okay, you'll have to do it at the next competition. But all right, I don't know. It's just like a weird victimology when he's winning all the time.
And again, if you want to go for global superstardom, people don't know what you're talking about.
And what are they talking about? The victim. They didn't do the whole reason that everybody was so against getting rid of one jump and for the choreo spin is that they were worried that it was going to hurt Ilia. It was actually going to help him, but they weren't just worried about him in the supremacy. They were worried about how it was going to affect his points because Ari wants him to set world records to sell that, right? Because it's
Not
like
as sellable as you think. I don't believe it. I don't believe, Joe Blow is going to tune into the Olympics and root for a world record holder. It's not swimming. I just don't view it that way.
is he just doesn't have the look from the skating to the hair to the costumes to like they have to figure out what to do. Nathan pre 2016 like 2016 and before didn't have his packaging completely in order, right? But remember
Everyone hated it when he first started seeing Vera for those things, but I really felt I was like, this is going to work just fine.
remember when he had that one costume where he would spin and it would like billow and it just like worked for that program and in 2017, but he had a sophisticated look and when he would you know cut his hair for the competition he looked very polished and looked like a winner. Ilias,
Serious, and this looks silly.
he looks like really
Both and the open back and the
like if Yuma wore a little makeup and like learned how to use his face he would look so stunning. And I was talking to coaches that were at the final, and they said, no, he's not doing a quad axel. But when you watch on the practices, Yuma's overall movement looks like he's becoming the best, right?
yeah.
Like if he believes it 10% more and can get, a quad lutz. I mean, his quad flip in the free was the best he's ever done it, right? So he is improving steadily. And I will say with Ilia, if he has tight calls here or there, I just he is great, right? But I think what it is they've been so aggressive his entire career, right? About okay, it was a tough call when he didn't go to the Olympics, right? Those were 4 people who were deserving for different reasons of going. He didn't get to go, but he had only popped that year and he really popped at nationals at the last moment, right? It was a tough call at the time. I would have sent him. I probably
I
still
would
would
have.
have decision, but I understand why they sent Jason and I'm not offended by it. I had felt strongly that Jason was injured that season and not at his best, right? And I think he was so much better the next year. And you had to send Vincent because he won Skate America and got the spot at Nebelhorn and he
Right.
had quads. So even though he was terrible at nationals as in the free, I was like, you have to send him on
Right.
paper. Moving forward, I feel like they've just been fighting. Like he wasn't great at Worlds in 2023. Okay. It was not his best performance. But they move forward. He has improved. We haven't seen the quad axel in the short. Okay.
Right.
So they could be doing things to get even more points, right? And they've played games where they haven't done it because they want the ISU to reward it more and they want to show them like, it's this weird game and this aggressive antagonism. And I actually think it turns people against him rather than
Turn on.
and I think a lot of it has to be his parents and Ari. Like I don't hear it coming from Raphael. I don't hear it.
But I don't even see those shenanigans in the kiss and cry with the dad.
Not as
We
much.
saw some shenanigans with Mikhail, his coach here. I
Yeah.
don't know who it was, but doing like these are too low. Like I don't know, it's just so classless. I find.
I don't know. It's like Ilia's winning, but when I watched him in the free, I don't know. I felt nothing. And when I watch the short, I do like genuinely see improvement and like, well, he's phenomenal, right?
There's a performance quality to it in the short. Yeah.
The free, I'm like, this is a mess.
Compare it to when Yuma just so he like gets up and then there's that one point where he like stands at attention. It was
Yes.
like the music and it like takes your breath away.
Because
Like
it's
it's
quality, right?
unbelievable.
We talked about Mone Chiba and where she gets points. Yuma has quality everywhere,
It's just
right?
oozing out of his pores, this presence. Yeah.
The quad sal was not his element this weekend, but usually that is the most stunning element, right? And at Worlds, he had the most stunning landed elements. It would like be like when you would see Patrick Chan at his best, right? Like in
It
20.
does matter more.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If grade of execution is to reward that, everything he does is in its purest, finest quality. This is the skater I root for at the top now.
Ilia's program is more Duhamel Radford, like they're going for points, right? But you have to balance it with
But
the
they
quality,
rotated.
right? Here, he was tight. I would take the quad loop out at this
Mhm.
point because it's becoming a detraction. And
And again, unless each competition just engages him by like test running something new. I mean, that's what's always been so interesting about his nationals wins is it seems less about winning nationals and more like, let's just use this as an opportunity to try something.
they do complain a lot for someone that's won 2 national titles with horrible free skates, right? Like that is a tough, and it's not him as much as the people around him, but it's not a good look at this point. I don't think it endears him uh, to anyone. He does have fans who think he's amazing, right? And he
And
is.
he is, but you're making it seem this is an unfortunate angle to be taking.
Yeah.
This whiny angle.
When there are a lot of people that think his components are too high. So that it only fuels them
Yeah.
when Ari goes out and gives interviews like this that they know are translated, but he's also doing it because he wants to get, the Russian judges that work for these other countries in his pocket. But they're
Yeah.
already in his pocket. So they want to rile up and make
But
changes in the.
again, like the layman for gymnastics fandom, like myself, like I like Simone because I hear about the cool, great things she's doing. Not that she's not getting enough points for them.
Yeah, but you know who had quality at these Olympics? Because once Simone got injured, it even the playing field a bit, right? Because the quality wasn't quite as sharp, right? In
Okay.
some performances at these Olympics, whereas in training she was sticking that vault, then in competition you were like, you wanted her to make it, right? And who did have really high quality in terms of execution was that Rebecca Andrade. And, Simone didn't have as big of a buffer. Well, if Yuma keeps closing the gap, Ilia's going to have thing. And I mean, they were talking about the quintuple, but if he's not getting the clean calls on his jumps here, I don't really see that happening in competition, as
Yeah.
much. Maybe it will, but um, I think you might have to do 2 quad axles, right? Or something, because I I think they could keep closing this gap if they want.
I think so too. I think it's pretty darn close. Already
Um,
showed it that it's close.
especially where, yes, he was phenomenal at World. When he is at his best, I don't think he's quite beatable, right? I don't think so. But we have seen him when the nerves get to him be vulnerable, right? And if Yuma has a great day and Ilia is tight, I mean, he almost lost to Jason at Nationals, in 2023. So I do think, Ilia has not always performed at his
No.
best. Although I think, this win is obviously impressive. He came in as the favorite. He did a ton of like really spectacular jumps. And I don't know why they didn't just say like, yeah, he killed it and we're going to be better in Boston. Right?
That's what it should have been.
Like to me, I would be like, you're seeing greatness build
Did
it.
you see how many different quads were in that? Yeah, and it is the first approximation. Wait till we get cooking.
The
Yeah.
first pancake wait, and I think that that's a more mature and sophisticated approach.
And
And
now
I
we're invested in the journey. Yeah.
because then like, wait a second, figure skating is supposed to be a beautiful sport, and I don't think him with the bent leg backflip is necessarily mesmerizing in that way, especially when you see Yuma and I'm sorry, you can't just call Jason Brown the only artistic skater because I would think Yuma's pretty damn artistic
Right.
and pretty close to you in terms of ability.
But
So,
maybe that's why it's not being mentioned.
I mean, his knees are phenomenal.
Oh my God,
Phenomenal.
the space he takes up, the edges but it's just the energy that exudes around his body in those opening movements of choreography. The full body commitment to all of it is like you cannot deny it. I'm ready to like give him all the scores, points, and prizes like first 10 seconds in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but like Nathan Chen didn't whine about artistry or making it into like homophobia.
Because Nathan Chen was one of those that, even though he didn't always utilize it, he was inherently artistic. His programs weren't necessarily, and they didn't cultivate that route, but yet you knew he could.
But don't you think it's also like the parents who you choose as your agent, what they're gonna
I
say,
think this is all agent based. I don't hear the parents saying that.
picks the yeah, but they don't really give interviews, but who picks the agent?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Nathan's mom was a little classier, smarter,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Because Nathan was with IMG.
Yes, and they were with Yuki, and it was a more
Traditional.
traditional approach, but I don't see Ilya in those ads yet.
Right.
And after seeing the Today Show, like we saw it today, I thought, I would put Amber in those ads, and I would find like cosmetic and aloe yoga and kind of commercials for Madison Chock.
Yeah.
Like, yes, he is the quad god, but depending,
Even that in and of itself, I know, and they go with it on the commentary and all this sort of stuff in the signage, and I'm like, there's something a little too icky about it because it's self-proclaimed.
self-proclaiming, which is, and with Simone, it was people got sick of that too. Um, there are only so many personalities to highlight before the Olympics, and while he could be one of them, like remember when Nastia competed in Beijing against Sean, her father had been in a fight with NBC. He didn't like that they did the fluff piece at nationals, calling her old the year before. They had done the same thing to many gymnasts in the past. She was injured, she was older, but they made Sean Johnson the sweetheart and they went with it. And Nastia decided not to do that. And they made her the icy Russian that you appreciated, but people didn't feel emotional to her. And not only did that not necessarily help her during the Olympics, but in the years later, I mean, Sean was like, you know, getting the bigger commercials for candy bars with Paulo Anton Ono, and she was doing all of these things that were more career building, and
Yeah.
Nastia's kind of went in a different direction. So I just think that they need to warm him up a bit. Like who are his idols? Like who does Ilya look up to?
Yeah, there is, but again, like you're saying, it could be that they're intentionally keeping him quiet. But by
Are they?
keeping him
I
quiet,
feel like he's the kind of idiot. Okay. If you had interviewed Nathan, right? And you have to ask him like who's his idol, I'm sure he would be smart enough to be like Scott Hamilton, Evan, Boitano. Even if they're not your specific idol, in America at the Olympics, you need to know what to say. If you say it to Ilya, I'm worried he'll say Plushenko when the answer is supposed to be Nathan Chen, right?
got it.
Right? Michelle Kwan, if you look at her early interviews, she used to say that Tanya Harding was her idol. As soon, because she wanted to do the triple axel, and that's what she was focused on early on. As soon as the whole Tanya and Nancy thing happened, changed it. Brian Boitano, watching him at Calgary, that's what she talked about. They
Mm,
have also loved, but they made sure she did not mention that Tanya Harding
right.
ever again.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's an answer you're supposed to give. You have to give Hoda Kotb what she wants, right? And I just feel like they're not playing this the right way.
Yeah. Well, and I don't.
Remember when we interviewed Papadakis and Cizeron, and he said that they had no idols, and I was
I
done.
believed it. I did believe him.
I believe him too. You know, like, I wasn't a fan of that answer. I thought that was arrogant, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
I don't know. To me, it was outsider. It's why I sort of, I don't know. We had different responses to it, but I hear what you're saying.
but
But
if you also think like Papadoc and Cizeron, right? They're appreciated. They've never hit that warm fan feel the way Tessa and Scott did,
because
right?
they didn't go through it through skating channels in a way. I agree with you. They were like outside artists that happened to do skating as their thing,
They
and they
didn't
brought their
say the right
outside.
things, right? Like they didn't know how to. They didn't play the game in the right way, and Ilya's not playing the game
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I'm inclined to agree with you.
Yeah.
And I'm just not sure where I see him with that aesthetic top to bottom in that costume. Where do you think I see that? On a Nike ad in Columbus Circle? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it's bad that, when Hoda and Savannah are talking, they watch the whole package and they go, oh, it'll be so great if Amber can make the Olympic team. Not like Ilya just landed the quad axel. That's so amazing, right?
Right.
I mean, he did temporarily go viral after Worlds, but they didn't back it up with all of the kind of TV appearances that you need.
But
So,
even I was noticing this about Nathan when, for instance, back at the day, I'm trying to think when we were filming, as we have filmed, like which programs kind of went viral. There was a moment where, gosh, Vanessa and Morgan at
sound is
Europeans went viral because people, they don't know whether it's a side by side triple sow cow or a double sow cow. They don't know if it's a throw triple toe or a throw triple lutz, but they liked the program.
come
So
on. They were a hot interracial couple dressed well, skating to modern music with some edge.
looking good,
Yes.
looking good doing it. Like this, the program was nice, all this sort of stuff. The Nathan Chen programs would be pushed by NBC. Look, here are 6 quads in one program, or here is whatever it was that day. But they didn't quite take off the same way. They got views because they were being pushed. But even when we all do that thing where we play videos for our friends that don't really watch skating, they would always respond to like Patrick Chan's or Jeremy Abbott's and these sorts of things. They didn't always go for the Nathan clip.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think the same. NBC can push Ilya's program and say that there was a quad axle in it, but I don't think people are sharing it with one another.
It's so funny.
They
Like,
enjoyed it
my
so.
mom texted me this morning. She's like, how come you haven't told me about Amber Glenn? And I was like,
I have
oh.
been talking about Amber Glenn since 2017. Yeah.
Like to me, I was like, oh, she's now crossed from like skating talk to real talk.
Yeah.
Like there's a shift there because, and I was talking like there aren't real. So a coach was saying, there are top skaters, but there's no like superstar right now with the aura, right?
Right.
Amber might start to shift this if she can win.
If she can handle it.
She can handle it, right? And other people, right? Like there's just not that same skater with that magnetism, like Yuzu or Nathan. I mean, I just remember seeing Yuzu do the Chopin in Boston. The way he filled the arena in that short program was mind blowing. And then, I was with, a friend who appreciates skating but doesn't, know, all the ins and outs. But Javi's program just, endeared everyone, right? And certain about, Ashley and Gracie's personalities. They just had that thing. Ilya doesn't have it in the same way.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of the Linda Fradiani thing.
That's a good way to put it.
Appreciate it, but it's not
Popping off the page for some reason. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. But it's capable of it, right? The right music, but I don't think that they, at least this year, it's not popping off the page. But then they try too hard, right? Like they try with the quads, with the overdone costumes, with the, like they need to.
And that's my fear, is that somehow they're getting the message like it has to be more. And it's not that it has to be more, it just has to be refined. So it didn't say make your costume as busy as possible so it looks artistic. It was like we're talking about a toe point or a shoulder
Yeah,
move.
but who's Ari's favorite skater? Like, was it Plashenko? Because like, if that's what he's going for, I mean,
And there you go.
he's
Yeah.
mentioned wanting to do the World Pro, but he tried to do some event where they're all doing backflips and stuff, and he thinks that that's what's going to save skating. But I don't know anyone that went to that event or talked about it afterwards. So
No, it happened. Yeah.
I mean, anyway, what did you make of the dance here? Any other men that really stood out to you? I think it was
For Kevin, what I will say is like, yes, I know this was not what we wanted, but it's still better than it could be. It still shows to me that this is better than it was.
I would like him to do whatever Amber's doing.
And it took Amber a long time.
Yeah, I just don't get that he's there yet. And I
Yeah.
think performances reflect that.
Yeah. I think moving closer, I mean, it wasn't a total implosion. And we
It's
have seen them. This wasn't that.
when he's landing the triples on the wrong foot is what's more
Oh,
concerning.
that was confusing to me. And was that the combo in the short?
No, the
Figure that one out.
short looked like he almost was about to do an illusion spin, but he went really forward with his chest and then the double toe. But in the free, it was
Okay.
messiness. But yeah, it just I
And
work.
Russell, I couldn't with the short program. When I saw the new outfit, I thought, oh gosh, is he trying Afternoon of a Fawn? And they're like, no, it's a song like written about him or something. I wasn't quite following.
The missed drug tests, and again, Mark and Ted, they spun that a little too positively for,
hmm.
you
Well,
know.
I mean, Mark kept bringing it up. Ted didn't bring it
Yeah,
up.
Mark kept bringing it up in a way like, well, he used that time to go to university and really became so much better and more. And it's like, this is a guy that missed 3 drug tests and went to Terry Tuberitsa right after Camila Valieva tested positive. Like, what you
He
talking
did
about?
say, like, he is calling it out because he's like, he gets a lot of online hate for that.
It's a lot of online. I mean, there's when you say he gets a lot of online hate, it's almost implied as if it's not justified, right? The way Mark says it, where you're like, this is
There
really
were people trolling instead of
a little
genuinely.
more controversial than that, right? And especially in a sport where the Valieva case went along. I mean, we're just giving medals for the last Olympic Games. Like, I don't know. It's a tough one. It's kind of tough to defend for him. But
I would say Shun Sato, although not like a super inspired watch, a super solid, lovely skater. Like, because I'm trying to think, where are you at with the men's team for Japan right now?
you mean you have to bring him, unfortunately.
Right. But at least, even though it's not,
It's
historically,
it's Yuma and it's Cal, right? I think at this point. I just I think Shun is capable of more. Again, it's the lines, it's the extension, it's the overall finish. I mean, all the work that Yuma has done with Carolina, like that needs to be the model for these
a
other men.
model for all things. It just top to bottom. I can't get over it. That free skate is such a stunner.
We also have to look at like how much Yuma has improved year to year to year artistically. Like,
Yeah. There's a gravitas to his skating, and that's what I like about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I think Ilia is more than capable of doing if they actually.
Yes.
I remember Victor Pfeiffer used to work with Ilia and sent me a video of him on something that they worked on once. And he's like, no, he's really capable of moving well and doing this, but that's clearly not been the focus.
The focus. Yeah.
And I
From
felt,
what we need to be.
yeah,
I think from this, your focus isn't we need to refine, it's we need to rotate fully.
yeah.
Yeah. But
Um,
this was a lot.
well, it's funny. Before the event, my hope was just that something was going to break up the top 3, always being Chock and Bates, Gilles and Poirier, and Guinard and Fabry. I felt bad for Piper and Hall in the short. However, I don't know what the heck. Sorry, what the heck they were wearing, right? It was that bad. Okay.
Fishy, yeah.
I was gonna say frick, and
I know you were, Dave. Everyone knows that.
like I was okay. those were like
They were like
air
scuba diver. They were like wetsuits.
diver tanks, right? In the
Yeah,
back.
so they were like the oxygen tanks on the back.
Okay. This team has gotten in this weird thing where they always do quirky, right? Always, right? They're sticky, they're quirky, they don't have the traditional body lines, which, by the way, they could have worked on in this amount of time with, Pilates and movement coaches and whatnot. Her extension could be better physically. It could
They
actually.
seem slower to me.
They did look slower.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about Evan Bates being old. Paul Poirier was also around in 2007, 2008, 2000, right? He's also long in the tooth. Piper's been around for a long time as well. I felt bad for them skating into the boards. I mean, it seems like they've had freak errors this year, but then you wonder, like, why they've had the
But
freak.
all in totally different ways. That's what's unusual. Yeah.
That's what's unusual, and that's what's disconcerting. Although I just wonder the motivation for them, right? I feel like everyone is continuing because why not? Although we have seen Luna, who hasn't been participating this year, but I think that they, like Chock and Bates, like Kaori, are kind of in this, well, why shouldn't we continue?
Well, might as well. Yeah.
They are older. As you get older, these things do happen more, right? And you feel more pressure in some respects. They're a high quality team. I don't think that they need the gimmicks. They always, to me, they go too far with their costumes to where I always find their costumes distracting. In the free, I find it distracting.
The free, it's very distracting.
I thought the short was distracting.
Well, yes, also, yeah.
But to me, I'm sorry, but part of Chock and Bates looking like the winners has to do with how they're dressed,
Well,
especially.
it's funny you mention it because when they skated to center ice for the free dance, I thought, oh, well, it's like the adults entered the room.
Yes. It's
Pros are here
that
now.
Frank would have Michelle enter with us, the entrance. It's why you practice your entrance to already set in the judge's mind, I'm the winner.
Yeah.
And I don't know, to me it's tough. They always have had like the choreographed entrances. They're like the theater kids. To me it's kind of like Ariana and Cynthia constantly crying in the interviews. I'm like, it's too much.
Yeah.
I don't think you did 20 interviews that day. I don't think
Yeah.
each person brought you to tears in the
Yeah.
thing.
You're very
Ariana,
dry at this point. Yeah.
Ariana, I think you're trying to maybe redo your image because you were thought of as like the meanest girl of all time, right? Like this is what I'm thinking, right? So, and you never really came out against Dan Schneider, like I'm like, okay, this is which
Now you're going there, right? Now you're on a
not
Nickelodeon thing.
necessarily her fault, but at the same time, I think she's opportunistic. Okay, with I just Piper and Paul, I just want them to dial it back. Like and let the skating. I thought what was good about their Wuthering Heights at Worlds, even though I thought that was even too performative with some of those, the movement of her in front of the judges. They're capable of really, really good skaters, and they have some of these movements. But to me, it's just if I'm giving, I was looking at the lifts, right, and I was trying to think about how it's judged, and to me, Chock and Bates, that first lift with the rotation is such a unique position. She hits such a beautiful shape. It's going to be +4, +5
Every time. Yeah.
and I look at the opening lift of Piper and Paul, and while it's steady, her leg is always kind of bent. It doesn't have great extension. So if I'm comparing, I'm like +5 for,
+3 over here. Yeah.
3 over here. Well, the next, when Chock is dragged, again, it's unique and phenomenal. And they find a new, angle every year. And I'm like, wow, that's a +5. Okay. Their twizzles, weaker. For me, Chock and Bates, I'm like, that's a +3. But I can't say that Gilles and Poirier's twizzles are necessarily ever magnificent, right? So when you start to like pull it apart element to element and you start to look at aesthetics, I'm like, well, now I do think the judges went a bit high in terms of the performance of Chock and Bates. I think the music at times is a little big for them with the take 5, with the rhythms, and that they were a little slow. So I thought that the judging, but I also think with Piper and Paul, I'm like, I don't know that they're going to gain that much on them. I think both are vastly superior to the Italians in both programs. I think the Italians are so unsophisticated.
Even
And
though they changed their costumes?
I mean, it was almost better when they just wore the really
Changed
ugly one,
all the way in.
you
Yeah.
know? Like,
Yeah.
um,
What I will say about the Italians here, because they have had a rough season, obviously. I think, yes, because of the material, but in the past, they've had unusual material. Um, but what really stuck out this year was if you're going to be that technically sharp team, and that's going to be the thing, maybe we didn't realize how good your levels were on that, and that's why you're so high. They have been letting that go. And for the first time, Dave, like some judges were really tanking them here.
yeah.
And there was no huge egregious error, but four of the judges had them in fifth place after the free dance.
I mean, I
They
didn't like.
are almost a lot of people had Marjorie and Zach above them.
The thing is, they've always had a lot of momentum. We've always appreciated their skating skills, right? Marjorie and Zach also have very good skating skills. They could skate a little faster, but they have a very good glide. To me, okay, just talking about the overall for the top teams, Chock and Bates, it looks like artistic, right? There's a vision, it's sophisticated, both programs.
It's refined. It's refined. Yeah.
Whether you think even the rhythm dance is a little bit gimmicky, they look like professionals, right?
Yeah. And all rhythm dances have to be gimmicky, it seems, this year.
Piper and Paul, not as refined as Chock and Bates, but they have a point of view. They've worked hard on it. It's solid, right? To me, it's of a clear second, right? Compared to Chock and Bates. To me, I see like where I slot them in. The Italians, I'm like, whatever the rhythm dance is, I'm like, I could put this fourth, fifth.
Oh, the ketchup and mustard one. Yeah.
Then it's like, I don't, if there's teams when someone has really good skating skills and certain qualities, you're like, well, I have to put them at least third, right? Like I can't put them lower. When I watch their free dance, I'm like, what is Barbara's vision of ice dance? Because this is not it.
That's what I was saying. Like some of that Christmas and clarity went away this season. Some of it was coming back here. Things looked a little tighter and crisper, but I was like, it doesn't even look, if the thing they have to maximize is their crispness.
But to
And
me, it's supposed to be artistic.
I'm not
Well,
saying either.
I don't see art and I don't see performance, right? So then there's also skating, right? Where I would say, Fear and Gibson have the performance, right? I wouldn't say it's necessarily art and I wouldn't necessarily say that they have the best skating, but I would say that they have the performance, right? I'm like, what are the Italians offering? I just, yes, they skate well and she's got long legs, but they don't match. Her posture's not there. It's not beautiful. And we feel this, we're like, well, the Olympics are going to be in Italy. And I'm like, that's not enough to put someone on the podium for me. Like
Yeah.
just not the reason to do it. Um, I feel like someone like Marjorie and Zach, they've done well, right? To me, they're a little bit behind because she's had concussions the last couple of years, so they miss competitions to gain momentum. But now I'm thinking, you put them at four continents, you put them at Worlds. I can get on board building that.
Yeah.
I can get on board arguing that they should be above the Italians, right? In portions of the competition. Especially, I think the free dance needs a little bit of a better music edit. I think that they could do, again, that same color that Amber Glenn wears. I don't think that the costumes are great. I think her hair could be touched up to just read better on the ice.
Yeah, to take up more space. Yeah.
I don't think I don't think she is quite at the Tessa Virtue School of Packaging, but I think she's capable. And he has a good look, to him. They have good skating. They have nice programs. They have that move at the end of the slide that's, engaging. There's more building there with Le Joie and Laga that I'm like, it might not be quite right this year, but in a year, 2 years.
All the ingredients are there. You know, I always fell in love with them after that Rio Bird program,
Yes.
the opening lift. So they can do no wrong. I think what's missing for me is I wish so many of these teams have such like a whoa moment during their twizzles with
Yes.
their sort of signature arm variation or their signature approach to it. They strike me as a team that can have that.
Yes.
But right now, it is sort of like, and here is the traditional
Well,
expected.
keeping it real. Why was he at a piano competition this summer, right before she has the first of all, Jonathan has already taught me that piano competitions are like unsophisticated crap, right? Allegedly.
Did I teach you that? What did I say?
We were maybe
Okay, we'll talk about it later because I
let's
just
talk about it later.
don't know about that. I mean, the Van Cliburn is pretty great. Yeah. Okay.
But like, music, competing.
Like those like state high school ones, like those are all like silly. Yeah.
Yes. But you're getting ready to like this is not the moment when you're getting ready to potentially be on the world podium. Like when we're looking at like who's third and who's fifth, well, like if you took time off over the summer and then your partner got a concussion that she gets every year right after, you're losing time, buddy, right? Like,
But I find it an artistic endeavor that is important to his musical and artistic soul, and I see that coming through.
when he's dressed as Austin Powers, you're seeing it coming through. Like to me, I'm like, we could.
Okay, yes, less so in that. Less so in that. Yeah.
Like maybe we gotta like be taking the ballet lessons and
Well, because actually the end of the rhythm dance is the most impressive part, which is the non-Austin Powers section.
yes,
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
Agree. The Austin Powers to me is cringe. I'm so like, but all of the rhythm dances are. It doesn't like offend me, but it doesn't elevate them.
When
Right?
it's that Quincy Jones piece doesn't have to have anything to do with Austin Powers. It's
Yeah.
like you don't have to go that route, but okay.
Yeah, I don't think the Austin Powers is elevating. It's a little Piper and Paul for me. Uh,
Well, and a little reminder almost, this is the younger team.
yeah.
And I think they're trying hard to prove that is not the case.
Uh,
I mean, technically finishing above Piper and Paul here.
Kind of like when Piper and Paul wore the orange jumpsuits, or when they wore, the Beatles costumes in Boston, where it's like it's too much. Okay, like it's not a winning look.
Talk forever.
Madison Chock's free dance dress, a winning look, right? Like that's
It really is. It really is. Yeah.
um, we can forgive some of their skating elements. Yeah,
It's also crazy in this dance event, like especially for the rhythm dance, to see Lyla and Lewis go last.
yes.
Because I remember even as I came onto it, like it was playing them, and I was like, oh well, I can just fast forward. And I was like, wait, what? I can fast once.
So this is really, I have to say, the first time in their careers I've seen her look a little intimidated. She was tight in both programs.
Mm.
And while it was great that they won a medal, it was a real missed opportunity because I don't think that it changed minds going into Worlds, where I think they're considered one of the top contenders, but it wasn't the victory over Piper and Paul that it may have been when they've
No, because it's easy to say that Piper and Paul allowed that
correct.
with the error. It wasn't two clean skates where they ended up
And,
on top.
and they won the last time because of an error, right? So, uh, yes, they're consistent, right? But now I'm kind of like, well, they need to really skate well at Europeans. Like they need to really skate well. Because that 122 is not really going to cut it. And they had, a lower free dance score at their last competition internationally. So I think they really need to push it. Skate America, not the biggest score there either. They need to really work on some of the refinement and get some more points because that free dance title, and you could see that they were disappointed with it.
Yeah. I was trying to look back and see, because do we think, I mean, I'm sure they're going for the European title.
Of course.
I think it's going to be hard for them to beat the Italians, though. Not based on merit, but based on judging consistency.
In the past, I would feel like they've had a season where they could do it. Losing to the Italians here and looking at Zagreb and looking at how Diana and Gleb have not gotten the biggest boost this year.
No, third weren't did they end up second? But they were third in some portions. Yeah.
Do you think it's just like too much where I am is starting to have a backlash where people are feeling nauseated? Like it's almost like the bridge too far, where why they took them for politics.
Mm.
It's almost right. They've been at the top for a long time, so there's always a pendulum, right? It's like when a musical artist is, people get
Right.
sick of it at the same time.
Right.
So
But what was interesting is that clearly more politicking was happening on behalf of Diana and Gleb pre IM. That
don't you
IM.
okay? Do you think Taylor Swift is going to have a really special album after she's been shoved down our throats and overexposed to the last time? Right? Like
Honestly, no, because I think the diehard fans are with her regardless.
they are, but she's at the risk of overexposure to where people are going to be nauseated. Right? Like
Mm.
she has to, and she's capable of it, but you have to be special, right? Like,
Uh,
and you kind of wonder if I am is just like at that point where you're like, ugh.
That's why if I were I am, it sounds funny.
I listen.
I'd be focusing on people like Marjorie and Zach. Because
People will get behind them. People like Fear and Gibson, right? They like that they're so performative, but the drawback is that people don't think that they're great skaters, right?
But it seems now, am I just saying this because I've seen them in France 2 times? But I also think the French team is like get some interest behind them. I think the combination of I am being such a monopoly and that a lot of their like people like Chock and Bates have been around for so long that we are craving some fresh material and faces in dance. But having said that, like what I appreciated about all 6 of these teams were there were definitely some wackadoodle choices, but there was a great deal of variety after a period of time where it was almost looking like the women's event where it was 6 of the same free dance in a row.
Yeah.
So I will like that we've gotten out of that sort of just copy lyricism and everyone do the same thing.
What
So
I'm what I'm positive about in dance is that okay, and who knows how long Olivia will go, right? But if we knock out some of these teams, right? If we had a final of Olivia, Fear and Gibson, Lijoie and Laga, and the British that won, at Zagreb, that's a much younger, fresher. You put Zingis and Kolesnik in there.
the finish,
The finish,
yeah.
that's where you're like, okay, there's new blood and there's developing blood, right? Like some of these teams feel forced at the top. Like, yes, they're good, but do they have much to say artistically? And they've been around a lot of times, so some of this is reputation, right? So
Right.
it's time. And I think that the sport for the last couple of years has been in this weird thing because these people were ahead. Russia is out, right? There's and with the age rule, increasing, there's just been nobody coming up to
Yeah.
really.
Or allowed to. I mean, I think they're there. The Czechs, the Finns, a couple of the
I meant
Americans.
across disciplines,
I
but
see.
yeah.
Because
But I think now we're seeing, some of the Japanese ladies emerging, right? And different thing, so, and I think some of that is, situational. I mean, Hei and Lee and Young Yu weren't competing in the fall and, different people and Isabel with
they end up reinstating Henley.
yeah.
Okay. And then also Young Yu or no?
Oh, because Young Yu didn't appeal. So Young Yu only had a year suspension and decided not to appeal.
Okay.
And Hei and Lee did. So
Okay.
yeah. Yeah. It's interesting,
Yeah, there's so much. It's also been interesting because my schedule has gotten so bonkers. So I'm not watching every week. So this has been an interesting journey also to sort of like drop in and see what's happening at certain places. It's a very different journey because I bet you are so burnt out.
Not burned out, but
Or
like
maybe burnt out's not the right word, but
no, but it's what I would say that the skating at times has been better. I was much less enthused last year and the year prior at different
uh-huh.
Definitely last year. I just didn't last year I didn't feel like there were any like special programs to really like get excited for. And this year, like if Yuma skates, I'm like, wow, right? Or the
Looking
fact,
forward to seeing the blank. Yeah.
yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Marjorie and Zach. I'm looking forward to seeing Amber. I'm looking forward to seeing the up and coming Japanese women, right? Like I didn't feel that in the past. And
Yeah.
I okay, like this is starting to turn. I think a low point, I remember watching the final 2022, 2023, and I think it was Cow, Soda, and Shun, and I thought, can anyone perform? Like, are we? And it was
Or
Ilia.
be an
Like,
individual or emote. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like is music and choreography is that like a thing? Like, are we focused on that? So, yeah.
But this year, a lot of the material has stepped up
Mhm.
in all the disciplines. It's nice to see.
And
And
I
a lot
think
more variety. That was crucial for me. That was one of the hard parts about last season was the monotony of everyone's approach, and we are seeing such varied interpretations now.
and with Adam out here, Shidorov being kind of crazy with like a triple axel Euler quad,
Triple or quadruple Sawa, it was bonkers.
like he's crazy, right? But you need that,
Yeah,
right? So, yeah, it's, and
I
I think,
think back to those characters on Yuri on Ice during that Grand Prix final. And
we
you
never,
need this kind of personality, and you need this kind of personality.
we never did see that movie. I don't like. I still don't really understand what happened.
Oh yeah,
Like,
I forget that movie came out, but I was embarrassingly like into the series when we were covering it.
of
I was like,
course,
end. Yeah.
how did it end? And it was so campy, but in the best way.
Like,
So,
because it was 100% right and it was showing us all those individual personalities and how different their performances and approaches were, and I was all in. I was all
what
in.
was your moment of the week?
Oh my gosh, Yuma. Yuma starting the free skate.
Okay.
It was literally his like jumping up into this like upright standing move in the first 5 seconds that took my breath away. Amazing.
When he missed the quad sow, like I had one of those genuine moments, like when Costner fell at the end of Worlds in
Mm.
2013, where you just think like, oh my God, no, right? Like,
Right there. Yeah, yeah.
um, Amber, I think, really just impressed me,
Yeah.
and a personal victory for her. So I thought that was really something. And I thought the dance being interesting
Yeah.
was,
Switching it up.
to me, the low point was Paris, for sure. I don't know. I listened to that whole Barbara book, that Papa Can You Hear Me program. I don't know if it goes on for 10 minutes, but it is just not interesting to me. I can't.
Yeah.
Hold it up. Sexy, everyone. But,